And welcome back to Subculture. Well, we've got a very special guest on the phone right now because the Skids are coming to Australia for the very first time in May 2024, and we thought we would actually get Richard from the Skids on the phone right now to chat about this amazing tour that is coming up. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Hey, man, thank you for having me on. It's a great privilege to be here.
No worries at all. Now, Richard, I've got to say, we are so glad that you guys are finally coming to Australia. Tell us a little bit about how you feel about this upcoming Australian tour.
Well, it's been a long time coming. It's somewhere I've wanted to go for the last 40 years, and I've had opportunities sporadically. I mean, in the first incarnation of the Skids, when we were kids, we were invited over, but then the guy that I wrote the songs with, he left the band, and so that kind of fell apart. And then I went on in a different version of my own life, made some movies, and I was invited over to various film festivals, but never managed to make it happen. So then we've been offered a tour a couple of times by Australian promoters, and it just never really worked in the diary. And then I got the feeling, David, it was now or never. So I thought we've got to go. I was made well aware that we're flying out there. We're not going to be in any luxurious scenarios. It's all going to be rough and tumble. And we arrive in Brisbane and play the same days we arrive. So it's like old school punk. I'm very excited by that.
Definitely. So, Richard, as you said, you have had chances to come here in the past, but it's never really quite worked out. Are you aware of just how many fans you do have here in Australia?
No, probably. I'm actually slightly nervous that there might not be very many. So I do know for sure that I've got some old schoolmates there, because they've been in touch with me immediately. They just can't believe it. They emigrated there when they left our school, maybe when they were teenagers, or even earlier with their families, and have had a great life in Australia and love the country very, very much, and are now fully fledged Australians. And they've sent me messages going, "I cannot believe you're coming at last." I said, "Well, it'll probably be only you in the audience, but we'll still have a laugh."
Definitely. So, Richard, tell us a little bit about your career, because you've had an amazing career. As you said, you've mixed music and film together successfully. How difficult has that been for you over the years to mix both film and music together like that?
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I found after, and it's a problem that a lot of people who were in bands from that era found, that it suddenly ends one day, and you go like, what am I going to do? Am I going to start another band? Or do I want to go through all that again? And so I always wanted to be a writer first and foremost. So I've written a couple of little books that got published, and they were fairly well received. And from that, things started to happen for me. I ended up becoming a presenter on various television programs talking about cultural stuff, like movies and books and theatre, that kind of thing, and of course music. And then I kind of slowly evolved into the movie world, more and more writing and talking about films, until I wrote some scripts that got made into movies. And then they turned one of my books into a project that I'd written, and they allowed me to direct my first film. And that was a success, and it kind of went on from there, really. So I've combined a whole bunch of stuff, writing scripts, writing books, novels, and making films and documentaries. But the thing that seemed to have left my life was making music, because I just felt that world had left me, and there was no way back in. And suddenly U2 and Green Day together did a cover version of one of my songs called The Saints Are Coming, and it was a global sensation. Suddenly people were interested in, well, where the hell does this song come from? Because it's not a U2 song or a Green Day song. And then they came looking for me, and they found me, and that was the start of me thinking about the Skids again. So it's been something that I hadn't planned, Dave, but there it was. It was there in front of me, and it's been one hell of a journey.
Yeah.
Great fun.
Now, we have a lot of bands on our show that we talk to about them covering other tracks, but what was that like, having one of your most iconic tracks covered by bands like U2 and Green Day together? Did you know it was coming? Did you have any warning, or how did that whole process happen?
Well, initially I had no warning of it, and then I got a phone call. I was coming back from. I worked for Sky TV in the UK. I worked in their movie department, and I was coming home, and I got a phone call, and it was from The Edge, the guitarist in U2. And initially, like a lot of people would have done, I thought that this is just somebody having a laugh at my expense. But it was the real thing, and he said, do you want to come down to Abbey Road Studios, you know, the famous Abbey Road Studios in London where the Beatles did some of their wonderful work? And we're recording a version of your song, The Saints Are Coming. And I went, really? I went, why? And he told me about it's for the kids who lost their musical instruments during Hurricane Katrina in Florida, and we're going to give all the money to that. Would you be willing to participate? And I went, well, yes, of course. So I went down to Abbey Road, and lo and behold, everywhere it was U2 and Green Day in the same studio. You know, it was quite shocking. The two biggest rock and roll bands on the planet at the time, and there they were in this famous studio recording. And I watched Bono sing the lyrics that I wrote when I was 15 years old. It was kind of surreal, and I got to say, profoundly moving. You know, I was very moved by the whole thing. And it was a big, big hit. So, you know, people took an interest in us, the band, and I guess the rest is history, Dave. I kind of went out and did it, and didn't expect anybody to really care. Just do it for a bit of fun, but the music lives on, I guess.
Yeah. You mentioned before that kind of sparked something in you as well to want to get back out there and get back into music. Well, what was it about that sparked that fire for you again?
Well, I think I left the music industry with a bad taste in my mouth. You know, the Skids had ended right at the peak. You know, a lot of bands hit a peak and then they just tail off, or they fall off a cliff, you know, because of their own self-indulgence or whatever. But we were at the peak. You know, the last gig we did was Hammersmith Odeon in London. We had a #1 album. And then Stuart Adamson decided to leave the band, and he went off to start his new band, Big Country. So, you know, it was a very strange feeling that there I was with the world at my feet. You know, I'm going to come to Australia, I'm going to go to North America, play some fabulous festivals all over Europe, and then suddenly I'm not going to be doing any of that because the main man had left the band and he was kind of irreplaceable. So we decided that, you know, none of these things could happen. So, you know, but when I left the industry, I kind of felt disappointed and maybe even a little bitter about the whole thing, you know. So I had no intention of ever coming back. And I mean, you know, I've obviously fallen back into it by accident. But the rule of thumb for me, Dave, is very simple. If I'm having fun, I'm in.
Yeah.
If I'm not having fun, I'm out. So I'm not a very cynical person. I don't really care about the money part and all that. It's just the fun part. And I just got this feeling inside me that instinctively what I do with the Skids, the way I present the Skids, the way I like to connect with an audience and have a bit of fun and, you know, have a laugh at myself, I think that's going to really work with an Australian audience, because the Skids are not a pompous band. You know, we're as probably real as it gets. And as I said to you, we're not coming down there expecting 5-star treatment. We're flying steerage. We arrive. We're straight on stage in Brisbane, and we'll be moving our own back line and stuff. So we're like an old school punk band.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got so many amazing tracks as well from your back catalogue. How do you put together a set list for Australia when you've never been here before? How do you put together a set list when you've got so many amazing tracks there?
Well, I think we're just going to go out and give it our best shot. I mean, as I say, I do a lot of talking between the songs, and so, you know, I've had quite a journey in life, so I've got a lot of stories to tell. Some really kind of wonderful, positive stories, and obviously some more sad, tragic stories. But there's a lot. It's more like a show, you know. It's more like a whole evening with the Skids. So you get the music, you get the stories, and you know, even though we're off an age, we're still fairly physically dynamic. You know, I go and see bands who are all like 18 and 19 now, and they're all standing on stage, gazing at their shoes, hiding behind their fringes. I'm going like, come on, go.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised, you know, for our stage of life, we're still at it and we still love it, and it comes across, I think, you know, that we're the real deal rather than, you know, being a cynical part of the nostalgia industry, which of course, whether I like it or not, we are part of that. But I don't think we're cynical. I think we're you know, we feel we're a very honest band.
Definitely. And you've got a little bit of a break there in the middle of the tour. You've got about a 6-day break. What are you guys hoping to do during that time being in Australia? Have you got anything on the agenda that you want to do during those 6 days?
I think we're going to be like real dumb tourists, you know. We're just going to go and kind of just lap it up because it's going to be an experience we might never be able to do again. And I think we're just getting our head around the size of your country.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we're used to the UK. You can go from Edinburgh to London in a day. It's no problem. But, you know, Australia's not a country, it's a continent, and it's huge, you know. It's so we're just starting to get our head around the fact that you can't drive anywhere. You've got to fly everywhere, and, you know, it's an enormous place with different time zones, for God's sake, you know. So, you know, the whole thing is going to be an experience, right, from start to finish. So, have I got a bucket list of stuff I need to do? Well, the number one thing I need to do is go out there and perform and make people feel like, hey, that was worth waiting all these years, you know, to see this band. And then, you know, I'm going to make a lot of friends, Dave, out there. And I think I'm going to take a lot of guidance from the people that I meet. One of the things the Skids always do after a show is we go out and hang out with the audience afterwards and, you know, hang out with people and talk to them and, you know, get to know them and get to know their stories. It's always been part of our makeup. So we'll be doing that a lot. So I think I'm going to be getting a lot of guidance from the members of the audience.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned before about 18 and 19-year-old kids being on stage, but do you find now that there's multi-generational audiences as well? Like, I know for me with your music, I'm in my 40s now, and my dad introduced me to your music. So I know my dad and I will be there in Melbourne to watch you play, but do you notice that there's like 3 or 4 generations of families coming along to watch you play now?
For sure. I mean, you know, we did a gig last weekend and in a place called Wolverhampton in England, and I went out afterwards to talk to people, and I was standing with a guy who introduced me to his granddaughter who was there.
Yep.
And man, I was like, wow, you've just made me feel really old. But she loved it. She loved the energy and the songs and the atmosphere and the laughter, you know, and she really, really loved it. And she got talking to me about some of the bands she goes to see of her generation, and she just said they make no effort to connect with the audience because I said, well, maybe it's because they haven't had much of a journey yet, you know, and maybe they don't really have much to say, and yet maybe that'll come later. But you know, I like being a front man. I like being the guy at the front of the show, and I like talking about who we are, what we've done, what we did that was good, and what we did that was terrible. Because, you know, for all the peaks, there are many troughs.
Yep. Well, Richard, we definitely can't wait to see you here in Australia live in May. So I guess to finish off our interview, what would you like to say to people out there who have already bought tickets and to people who are about to buy tickets to this amazing tour?
Well, I would say, first of all, come with an open mind. Come to express yourself in the audience. Don't be shy because you're Australian. You know, so there are no shy Australians, right? Or am I wrong about that? Because we're certainly not. We're going to come and give it you a full-blooded performance and hopefully put a big smile on your face.